we only have one speaker, and who is Alejandro, telecasting from or videocasting from Sydney, Australia. Alejandro is a head of quality engineering and product and DevOps. I would say many things in the company named as DevOps One. I think you can see his T-shirt with DevOps One is the company he works for. And they are a very high scale consultancy in Australia. They do a lot of business with Australian government and like private projects and so on. And Alejandro is the head of the whole quality engineering chapter over there and leading all. Interestingly, Alejandro and I have worked together in one of the projects back in Australia called as Qantas Airlines. So it's one of the biggest airlines in Australia. That's how we know each other. And this time I asked, why don't you join us remotely for the US Meetup? Please come in. Many people are showing up, which is good. Alejandro, this is a very good audience, let me tell you, in person. Like we haven't had this audience for quite a while. So this is our second in-person / hybrid meetup for under the banner of InnovateQA. We call it as InnovateQA events because we do meetups and conferences. We have an annual conference coming up on 5th of July. We are looking for speakers and sponsors. We have some volunteers from our team here who are representing us. But we can talk. June. June, correct. That's why we have volunteers. 5th of June, and I'll talk more about that, but I think let's get back to today. So Alejandro is going to be presenting something very fancy, something very real about AI. We have been talking about AI before ChatGPT was free. Like I'm talking about very early days. Alejandro was the first person in quality space who told me like GitHub Copilot really works. And I was like, is it seriously? They're just selling it, like maybe it's just for money. But then he got the license on his own. He started doing a lot of his own building stuff. I'll not snatch all your intro, Alejandro. I'll give it to you for sure. But I've seen and Alejandro evolving which is very rare in quality engineering space. He is a quality engineer for product. And he will probably explain more about why that title is there and what he thinks about that. Because quality engineers usually would go to technical manager, engineering manager, but then Alejandro sees a very bright light around the product quality engineering space. So over to you, Alejandro. Please give us a brief intro about yourself, very short if I missed something, plus the stage is yours. You can directly jump into it by sharing your screen. And thank you very much all for showing up. Please give a big round of applause to Alejandro.
Right. Thank you so much, Milan. Just double checking. Can you hear me properly? Because from time to time I was hearing some buffering.
No, I think it's all good here in the room. You can check if somebody online can just message that we are able to hear. That would be really good.
Fantastic. So again, as Milan's mentioned, again, my name is Alejandro. They call me AJ for short here at DevOps One, and I kind of a different organizations I work, I would have different names. So yeah, it's quite interesting in Australia how they shorten names is quite popular. Again, my role here at DevOps One is head of observability and quality engineering. And a lot of the work I've been doing over the last 15 years is around that quality space, starting from the humble beginnings of manual testing, coming to kind of this space now. I won't do too much of an intro because part of the session I wanted to do today is a little bit of storytelling with everybody. So please hold into the storyline. I promise I have some really good insights around AI towards the end and showcasing some of the capabilities that I've experimented built over the last year or so. Okay. Now, again, what we're going to be talking about is a little bit of the evolution of technology and how GenAI still has, there is an unchanging foundations into what quality is requiring to any type of product. So I'll start a little bit with, again, who I am. Again, like I mentioned, my name is Alejandro and I come from Colombia. I left my home country around 25 years ago in 2000 and landed in what you can see sunny Australia in Sydney. Over that period, I did my degree in just IT back then. So just learning about Visual Basic, V++, C++, database admin, and very kind of early stages of what IT and IT management was back then. Then I had, during the university degree, I did a lot of different jobs, so retail work and all kind of different areas. And then towards maybe 2010, 2015 is when I got into tech, start to do some just basic testing of some of the applications for a mobile company. And then as we are now, is just working into kind of that head of engineering around that new specialization. You will see down on my timeline, I came as a young person. I came here when I was 17, turning 18. So I had a progression of my identity of having an afro now, wearing a hat almost every day. So if you ever come to Australia and see a guy walking into a building with a hat, that's probably me. So I wanted to put some context into why quality is a fundamental piece of technology, and I wanted to kind of take us through a little bit of the past. So we go back to, if you think about technology, it really started with the Industrial Revolution and how all of that changed, how our lives were impacted into it. Well, not our lives, but our ancestors' lives was affected into the early stages of industrialization, bringing technology into day-to-day lives. If we look at what happened in UK through bringing the steam engine, it pretty much changed the topography of a continent where many people were living into their farms and distributed, and everybody came into the CBD. And a lot of these kind of drove a lot of different revolution of change. Now, if we look at revolution of technology, there's been many, starting with the first mechanical machines that happened in the 1800s, then the second revolution with electricity and labor at mass industrialization. The third boom happened with IT, so the dot bubble and a lot of systems and technology that was introduced. You could debate there was a fourth one with IoT, so pretty much distributing technology into everything that we do. And I feel that we're on the fifth transformational industrial revolution, which will be the GenAI revolution. ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot are just the beginning of it. We can see some of the changes with agentic capabilities of AI, taking that revolution even further and faster. And as we can see through industrial revolution timelines, the timeline of change, it just accelerated. So if we think about what will be the sixth and seventh iteration of industrial revolution, we don't know. It could be robotics integrated with AI and more. Still, regardless of all of those changes and how diverse are, if you think about what quality has been, it's always been people-centric. Every time I go to an organization, when somebody asks me, what do I think testing or quality is, I always say it is a very subjective approach. It depends on very individual wants and needs and organizations. Different organizations have different risk profiles, different customer base, and different requirements from legal and compliance capabilities. However, quality has always been this underlying need for it to ensure that something is working as wanted by our customers, from craftsmanships and guilds, the Taylor system. In the mid-20th century was more about quality control that was brought in Japan. And then we look at now at the 21st century and more, we talk about quality engineering and alike. So when we think about quality, I always refer back to when I used to be a salesperson. I used to be a retail person. So if you go to buy a phone or you go to buy a piece of clothing, you always go and talk to a person. That would have been me back in my early 20s, helping customers buy products. In these early days, I did door-to-door sales. I sell mobile phones, and yes, the ones that had Snake on it. And I even work as back office. And what I found from all of this, it actually created a foundation of what I think quality is, because I was talking directly with customers or people consuming products. So regardless of what the technology was, So if we think about the revolution of the smartphone, early into the cycle of a smartphone, people would have spent lots of money into a ringtone. Nowadays, people spend lots of money into a membership of a platform. But it's still the same. It is a need that is being developed. There is always going to be problems. Technology is not perfect. So I always found that my experience at back office gave me that context of understanding how some solutions need to be end-to-end solution. And it's not just how a website behaves for a customer, but how the whole system and the whole process of delivering this product is important. Door-to-door TV sales, I can't believe I did that in the age of technology now, where pretty much everything is on social media and you just subscribe to all these different streaming services. Those jobs don't even exist anymore, but it brings a really connotation of people wanted product and wanted entertainment that was customized to them. So my early days as a tester, all of those impacted how I felt. I usually like to have audience, but I know probably it'll be difficult that it's online. So Milan, we probably try to, if you want to capture questions or anything that we can ask at the end, we can go through it. And what I'll do is I'll move to my early days as a tester. The fundamentals that were built for me was customer sentiment and needs was important. The ability to support and sell a product quickly and easily. And the backend supports many services we consume. Now, then if we think about and we go back to how the testing methodologies have changed, you look at early stages of student and craftsmen was very simple. It was does something work and is it gonna fit my purpose? To now we have all of these different products, companies, literature, models and standards that quantify quality. So regardless in which organization you are, if you're in manufacturing or if you're on technology, you're on retail, you're on food and services, there will be different processes that are required to validate what quality is, and all of that continues to expand. I can only see with the iteration of GenAI and the new abilities of what the web and how we interact with digital products will be, that this will be exponentially more into the years to come. So back then, I look at what it was early thought as innovation and was test automation. It was all about fast, reliable, and reusable capabilities that were able to get the feedback. If we look again back of looking at technology, we look at the trends, and if you look at how Node has developed in the last 10, 15 years, it started like from JavaScript. I remember when I first learned my first automation framework in Ruby, and then somebody mentioned you need to move into Node.js, and then there's very little that is in Ruby that is in the market, depending on where you are, and Node.js has accelerated with the digital transformations in the industry. What I see, and probably it's not depicted in this area, is in the age of AI and GenAI, Python is becoming a very critical component and technology that people are using as part of AI, and data modeling, and there will be more frameworks that come from that space, and it'll be quite popular pretty quickly. So what I have learned from all of this is the adapting to change. So it's all about how to upskill in many technical aspects to use my experience as an individual. Ask the right questions, especially on how we change and my impact doesn't only affect individuals, but the whole process. And again, like what I'm doing today, share my knowledge as I cannot do it by myself. And I believe like the whole community of open source and the whole community of meetups are what enable us to actually develop different and challenge different ways of how the industry is going. So when I look at the present, quality engineering in many organizations have this kind of view that there's different stages of maturity and there's different ways of developing. from building a quality mindset, embedding quality, building quality in with the DevOps practices. And now we look at optimized quality with DevSecOps, SRE, and GenAI. This journey continues to evolve into different phases, and there's different summits that will be reached and new summits that will be that we will need to reach. So what I've seen in the industry from popular trends is a big change in open source. Playwright and Cypress is definitely something that has been taking the industry of test automation by, especially when we look at TypeScript, Node.js, they're getting download even more than Selenium these days. Quality assistant and coach quality. So I heard early in the conversation, people looking for roles, and it can be very challenging as in the industry, you might have a quality engineer, a tester, an SDET, quality coach. So it becomes what we found, especially in the Australian market. I'm not sure how much is in US, but I can imagine that that's even more exponential because we don't have as many people in our workforce. But there is very diverse way of how somebody that is a steward for quality, their role could be, and the name could be. We're looking now at prompt engineering. What will be the parts of quality that will sit within that space? I will cover a little bit that later on into a little bit of the demonstrations I have. And this whole concept of shift left, where you build and you support, is many industries have adopted that as part of efficiency of way of how we do work. So it's all about the whole DevOps cycle of you release, you plan, you code, you build, you test, release, deploy, operate, monitor, and start again. It's all this continuous flow of information. It's all about building feedback loops. And that's what I see that within the industry, quality remains that pulse check that is giving at all of these different gates, different quality gates or quality pulse checks that can help you progress through that cycle efficiently. And now we are at the age of GenAI, low-code, no-code automation solutions assisted by AI. And again, we did in DevOps One, we did an assessment of tools last year for a federal government, where we evaluated 5 tools that were uplifted through GenAI and that were either low-code or no-code solutions. That was an engagement that we did over 12 weeks. And within the 12 weeks, we found 5 new products appear in the market. So what this is highlighting is the rapid acceleration of how GenAI is going to create this whole brand new tool set, or how brand new capabilities, where might be more specific to individual needs, but they will exponentially increase because everybody will have the ability to generate these capabilities easier with agentic and GenAI capabilities. So I remember, like Milan was saying, even before ChatGPT, I used to use GitHub Copilot to help me with a lot of my development tasks and creating an auto generate. Some people didn't think that was gonna pick up because it was no too different from just having an IDE that will be able to just auto populate certain things that you had. And then ChatGPT came with this whole part of creative and generative ideas on how you need to do it. The difference between GitHub Copilot to ChatGPT was that GitHub Copilot was a very much individual need for developing and creating code, versus ChatGPT was this pretty much starting to talk to a kid that had lots of ideas and was able to have the depth of knowledge from a coding perspective and alike, much more advanced. And it was and the way that I started to use GenAI was in 2 models. It was my ideation process through generative AI, so GenAI like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and then more specialized AI like GitHub Copilot to refine and give me better quality of what I needed to do. Now, again, just because we're virtual, if you have any questions, write them down, pass them to Milan, put them on the meeting chat. We will definitely have some time to cover those ones. But I want to move to the next stage of, if I look back at when I started my working career to what people need now. Still, the early days of testing and the quality remain the same. It is all about customer sentiment and needs. It's all about the ability to support and sell products quickly and easier. Maybe this time is even faster. And you still have a backend that supports many services that we consume. Regardless of generative AI, you still need to go to the supermarket and buy a loaf of bread and a pint of milk. You might be able to pay now just by walking away from it to having to pay cash before, but you still need those back services for the consumer. Again, as I highlight, the only thing I can see from the change is that you need to deliver value to customer faster. There is an uncraving appetite of people that they just want it now. They just want this and expected for things to work. So quality no longer is just the baseline of it just satisfied a functional test. Quality becomes more around the differentiation between, can I get it quickly? Can I get it to the way that I like it? More personalized, but we're still with those fundamental pieces. So quality today is all about value, the value to get into customer faster. Digital experience is key, especially after COVID. A lot of things had to be distributed, and now more than ever, the digital economy is booming, and digital transformations we see in many organizations are accelerating. Innovation and disruption influence behavior. So again, when I go back to when I was selling mobile phones, nobody will be buying that Nokia 1100 to play Snake anymore. The minimum requirement is a smartphone that has internet and takes pictures and does much more. So innovation does change. And AI is definitely assisting technology and changing the landscape. So what I like to look at now is the future of where I see we will be in the either short or distant future. Now, generative AI in the digital economy, by market research, currently, if you see 2024, 2025, the size of it is around 847, 196 applications or capabilities in the marketplace. It is only breaking down by software platform and services or SaaS. In the next 10 years or so, or even less, you can see that that's just going to be multiplied as part of what the AI is being able to provide capabilities. So just keep that in the back of your mind as we continue through the conversation, but think about quality. Before, if you think about quality, it was all about, I want this really great product that works for many people. Will quality change as you start to get all of this amount of choice? Generative AI in the enterprise will definitely be accelerated. As much as enterprise is a slow taker of AI, they will starting to take deep learning, GenAI networks, natural language processing, cloud computing, and other technologies. And again, it is definitely going to explode as part of enterprise seeing the benefit of GenAI. Now, what does that mean for our workforce? What does it mean of what is it that we need to be doing if a lot of the capabilities that are getting generated are based on on AI? And relevant to myself, and I think from a quality aspect, if you think in the DevOps market at the moment, there is a fair amount of tools and services that use generative AI. Again, all of that just gonna get exploded with how many different products, different ways that we need to look at quality. So if I go back and look at the summary of what I see is that it's gonna be 3 times the AI assisting digital products. DevOps industry will be, or like quality engineering, development, CI/CD is going to be multiplied by 13, and enterprise is going to have 14 times more solutions that are supported by AI. So how we need to ensure that quality can be supported, and also how do we use AI to support these capabilities? So just to give you an example, if we think of simple things like, let's say, how will I do API testing? We know Postman has AI at the moment with the Copilot they have. Grafana Lab K6 for performance doesn't have anything in there. Swagger from Smartberg got acquired a while ago, and they're just introducing more capabilities. But if we look at how the trend from the market is looking, there'll be 30 more applications for every one of these applications that are in the market. So will there be a new type of solution or a new type of platform or 30 new different platforms that can replace Postman? And is it going to be the way that from quality engineer, how am I going to choose that tool? How am I going to make sure that that tool is satisfying my needs? And that's pretty much where the challenge is. I don't know if you've heard this context of if you take a person to a supermarket and they only have 2 choices to select for their bread, they're very able to make the choice. But when they go to a supermarket and they have 30 new choices, they struggle. Like as humans, we're not adapted to the choice. We like to be we like to be able to have a really small cognitive load towards our choice. So there's going to be challenges around how quality is being thought in 2032. So who will decide what tool or what quality will be? What tool will solve problems that I need to solve, especially if my problems are now 14 times more than before? Can I consolidate my tools and problems based on if we see most enterprises that like this whole aspect of consolidation and bringing efficiency? Will the new tools be doing all the same jobs but cost differently? So will it be a competition of cost, or will AI decide for me? Will I just go to ChatGPT and type, I need the best API tool to validate my capabilities? Or again, if we think of how they change, will even be there an API tool solution that we need? Will it be more about agentic and generative capabilities? So let's park this for now. Let's take a breather. And let's look at maybe from a product perspective, what we see GenAI is doing around how your products change. So if you see here, your digital experience has changed. So if you go to Microsoft Bing and do a search, if you were to do this search 5 years ago, the design and the look and feel will be completely different. These days, if you download the Microsoft Edge, you have 2 components to your Edge. You will have your normal browser and you have your chat. And the experience is completely different. You might be in the center, but as a consumer or as a user, what will be the best way that I'm going to use? Not only that, I talk to my kids. I have 3 of them at different ages, and they all struggle with technology different. And what they use technology is completely different to how I use technology. So how will be the market be in 10, 15 years when the new consumer and workforce come in place, and all of this becomes just your as it is or your BAU. Voice to text is something else that is happening through generative AI. So how do you validate quality? As you can tell, I have a really strong accent, even though I've been living in Australia for 25 years. Again, how is this going to be able to be measured? How's the quality going to be validated? Are you going to be doing automation? Are you going to be using GenAI to actually be able to quantify or qualify the quality of the output that you get? Or is this still going to be manual? And how do you actually do manual validation of voice to text when I only have one accent? Visual and illustrations is something else that is coming. And again, all of this is more generative. We're not even jumping into agentic yet. But if I put an image and I'm asking to make an illustration of it, is the quality of that image expected? Would you say that this illustration has passed my quality controls? When I ask the question again, an update, I get a different response. So as you can see, generative AI has a different context of it's non-deterministic. So quality has to change and adapt to ensure that that we can be able to give some valid information or valid quantifiables of what quality means. Again, we go into data and training models. As I mentioned before, I've been working a lot with AI or experimenting. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in machine learning or AI, but it's definitely different things that are in the market. And if I look at the different ways of training models, you might have the different data has been trained with different information. You might be asking the same question. So how do you start to experiment and understand how the different models, either large or small, gonna give you a deterministic response, and how even I teach my users to improve the way that they ask for questions, or how do I kind of drive through that conversation. So again, as you can see, there's exponential complexity when we start to thinking about AI in today's world and the challenges that we face ahead. So again, what tools support the solutions of tomorrow? I don't think we are there yet. There is, and especially the way I see it is, there's going to be a lot of hype in GenAI, same as it was in automation. But unless it is thought differently, we're going to go through the same problems as we had before. So what I mean by that is, if I think about test automation in the early 2000s, many people thought that they could just automate brute force testing and get the same outcome that if they were doing more cognitive testing. The reality is that to be able to use automation into a meaningful way, you really need to think about more quality engineering, build testability, and semi-automate some of the process that is going to give you feedback to make a decision, and not just automate the process that we were doing 5 years back. So when we look at AI, I see many tools at the moment that just putting AI into their capability, but they're just redoing this brute force component rather than rethinking how quality should be thought. Can tests be deterministic? I think up till now, the majority of people will say yes, testing is binary, is a yes or a no. I think that's going to start to blend. It's going to be more gray as you get more products, more different expectations of customers and needs. And how can we deliver at the same speed? Well, I would like to add, how can we deliver the same speed with the same level of quality that we want, or the right level of quality that is needed for each of the products? So again, all of that reverts back to, regardless of those questions, it is all about the customer sentiment and needs. As consumers, we have the choice. The ability to support sales products quickly and easy, yes, faster. Backend supports many services. You still eat milk and bread, well, unless you're lactose intolerant and gluten-free, but most of the time you will eat the same things that we were eating before. And the quality of today is all about value to customers faster. It's all about this digital experience, which I think I don't know if you can call them digital anymore. Still, they get delivered through the same process and methodology. Innovation and disruption definitely changes how things behave. So if you think about the trend of search engines, Google and Bing had to introduce generative AI capabilities to be able to start meeting trend. But even the search and the way that people behave on how they're doing is starting to change. So I can see that my kids most likely not going to know how to Google things, but they will be just talking to an application or an agent to their phone or their watch device, asking for things and being expected to do things. And AI will continue to assist this technology. So the way I see quality in the future is all about more of a scientific method. It's all about how you use science to quantify and go back to that hypothesis model of making observation, research, hypotheses, and validate. It is definitely going to become non-deterministic. It is as you can see, GenAI, regardless of how consistent or how much context you give, the answer is always going to be different, because it's part of how the algorithms work. It's meant to be creative. And the customer sentiment and adoption is what is going to drive quality. So if I think about selling a specific product, if I only sell it to one person, it's not going to be commercial. It'll be how I can sell it at mass, but being personalized. So my conclusion around this is GenAI is definitely changing the landscape and how everything is going to work in the future and in this short future. I do see that as quality advocates, coaches, testers, and alike, it is our responsibility to adapt to these trends and understand what they mean, how they affect the way that we work. Still, we will be required in the workforce because we have that cognitive way of doing things. I saw an article of GitHub Copilot agents has been released as preview to many organizations, and what they're proposing is that there is a prompt that will be generated or a task that is allocated to the agent, and then it's going to be reviewed by a person. So we still have that quality control, but we will need to change the way that we think about quality as part of our responsibilities, and not just be the bare minimum of, is this meeting expectations, because the expectations will multiply. So that's pretty much what I have on my presentation. And what I wanted to do maybe is open the floor to some questions while I prepare my screen for the next part of this session, which is a bit more interactive. I have a couple of tools that I've built with GenAI that maybe give you an understanding of how is this changing in the industry. Milan, is Milan still there?
Yeah. So if somebody has any thoughts, question, like I have many, but I want to give it to the room first. Feel free to just, it should not be a question as well. Like, do you have any thoughts? Yeah, please go ahead. Like directly you can ask to Alejandro. Yeah.
One of the things that, am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay. I was in cybersecurity, and code reviews is a big thing in code secure. I think that's one of the first places where Gen AI might be coming in for creating those reports on how the code is written, what is the process, what is the standards that the code must meet, and how is it reviewed before it goes into production.
Yeah, I don't, as I mentioned, GenAI will just explode into the way that requirements are needed, and specializations of like cybersecurity or visual validations, accessibility. And I'll show you a couple of projects. One is based in the US called Testers.ai that addresses a little bit of that component. But even the mainframe tools. So we work with GitLab, GitHub, and many other DevOps tools, and we see that the first component that they try to address with AI is that whole pull request, security, SaaS, Dust, and some additional capabilities. But still, they're not as much as they've been built into the process is the early stages of that. So they still need to be validated and make sure that the scope that is covered is sufficient. So I do agree, but I don't think it's the only things that will be reviewed. It's just gonna, if you think about that, multiply that by 13, and many more will be addressed.
Yeah. Is anybody else in the room having anything to add up to this question about security testing and the use of AI in that space, or any experience so far?
Yeah. Within Microsoft, there are these AI tools. They call them like PR assistant, where they would look at your upstream dependencies and wherever you have vulnerabilities or with a certain CVE score, and it would create pull requests on the behalf of the user or the service to fix and remediate those vulnerabilities. So yeah, I see there are interesting applications for, we call them AI or Gen AI, but they're more like a little more intelligent applications that would do these things. I also partly think that there's a bubble brewing. Your page or your graph shows somewhat of an exponential growth in the next 8 years. But like the dot-com bubble, I'm a little bit of a pessimist. I think it'll grow to a point where people will throw AI in everything, and it'll be immediately overvalued, and then there will be some kind of a bubble and it'll collapse. But that's, I'm no expert. I'm just sharing my personal opinion.
Yeah.
I definitely agree with that bubble, on the sense that I think part of it is more that those bubbles will pop a bit faster. So I already see it that many tools in the industry are just adding AI to it as kind of a differentiator, but it's no longer a differentiator. And that's part of what I was talking about innovation. It's a new product that has come in the market, and if you don't have it, you pretty much fall behind. It becomes more a BAU. Is it actual AI, or is it actually uplifting the capability? No, I think it's doing what you mentioned, and it's just putting AI into the product so you can say that you have it, but it's just doing what you used to do before with AI, and probably it's a higher cost, because if we think about the current AI model, it's been very, and I'm probably controversial in the room, but like until DeepSeek came out recently, the open source language models were not very popular. I've been following Huggy Face's program for like the last 2 years, and I've been doing some investigation around small language models that is more relevant about cost efficiency on AI, but they were not popular. But then DeepSeek affecting kind of the ChatGPT notation and being able to have your open source capability, that's going to start to change. But now agents are coming in. So I see there's going to be another bubble of how many solutions are going to say that they have agentic capabilities, and they're just going to be repeating the same thing. So yeah.
Yeah, you can continue, and then you can go first. Yeah.
So regarding I have thoughts regarding the DeepSeek or one AI. Like, so we can also use our LLM models offline in our computer. So I have doubt that since it's even the open source, there are some companies like they host their LLM model online, like Perplexity or AWS. Even they use DeepSeek or one. If I use my model offline, is there any discrepancy or something that it can use my ports, and there is a chance that my data is gonna be leaked from my laptop or something?
So the analysis that I've done on DeepSeek, I haven't seen anything taking control over and sending anything over kind of like an underlying protocol. I've definitely turned off the Wi-Fi, turned off my internet, and been able to. So I had a recent post where I actually interacted with a small instance of DeepSeek code 1B while I was on my train right from the office home, turn off my internet, and I was able to interact with it. The challenges were, of course, my laptop is not even though I have a Mac M2, it was still lagging and it didn't give the responses quickly. So like I still think that there's not enough understanding of how to run an LLM effectively locally or for open source. And that's some of the challenges. And most organizations that are doing, if you think all AI is really over the internet, or the expectation that you're going to connect to an API or have connectivity that way. But yeah, so from a security perspective, I haven't seen anything yet, but I haven't gone any deeper into kind of putting perimeters aside and see if anything comes. Because again, you could be pessimistic and say, well, it might not be doing it on the action in itself, but it might doing it later as part of a post call. So there's definitely a lot of investigation that needs to happen around AI before using it, ethically and safely and secure.
Yeah, I actually want to add on that. So sometime back, I had a post in my LinkedIn kind of feeds that there's a new trend where they will give you Q assignment, and if you do well, then they'll take you for interview. But then somebody found that during that interview there was this tiny link thing which was pointing to JSON placeholder website, and they were posting your payment. They were basically scrapping Bitcoin accounts in your laptop. So it completely makes sense. I mean, should we trust even if it's free and offline, because somebody took a lot of years, if not months, to build it? How come they are doing it for free, right? I think the question is very, very obvious, and that's why the onboarding and the chart which Alejandro was showing is slow. I think the all the time which will take is to build trust and reliability. Okay, yeah, this is kind of safe. This is not safe. Because the underlying thing is, I don't think AI is government regulated as of now in any country, or because it's like global public, like it's like any other GitHub package, right? So I think that's what it's gonna take. And will it be a bubble burst, or will it grow, or like just go down? We'll get to know around that time when there would be legislation or maybe standardizations. Yeah, these are my ideas, but I mean, if you guys have yours, you can share.
That's a that's a big concern. And hi Alejandro, this is Juan Camilo from Colombia too.
Oh wow!
Uh,
Do you know each other?
no.
Yeah, we're
This question
cousins.
is
We're
planned.
cousins, Milan. We're cousins.
I know you will answer this question.
Well, I also wanted to ask about another kind of security, let's call it like that, and it's about deepfakes, scams, and fake news. Because now with every kind of Gen AI or artificial intelligence motor, let's call it like that, you can create like I saw a lot of tools that you can fake LinkedIn post and say post every day at this time, and this is could be for good stuff,
Hmm.
for grow my network, for look a little more professional. But what about scams, fake news, and
I know we are getting
fakes?
we are getting outside the quality topic, but this is real. I think this
Oh,
is the
no, no,
real
no,
core
that's
of usage of AI, which everybody is wanting to
that's
get at.
This is quality
that's
also.
but again, that's exactly where, if you think about quality and look holistically, again, so there was the early question around security. So what should we be thinking about the boundaries of security with AI? It becomes, rather than a closed bubble, it needs to be bigger because there are more things that are going to be affected by AI. Again, fake news or regular posting, or even look, half of the content that is written in the industry these days, in LinkedIn, everything is all generated by AI. Not everybody's going to accept it because they'll say, well, I put my ideas, but at least 50% of it would be. Now, how is that relevant towards, well, if you were using an open source package, or if you're using something that or using inspiration from somebody else, but this is more like it's starting to take over. I see many LinkedIn posts where the images are always very similar. So some of the challenges from AI is that you start to recognize what is GenAI generated and what is real. Well, sorry, what is unique, because GenAI just has only this section of information, and as much as you try to expand it, is going to be only to that component, unless you train your own LLM with more information, right? So it is definitely a risk, and part that becomes more additional things that need to be added as part of security. How are you going to protect the customer, so for them to not get scammed of somebody taking payments, because they're able to pretty much create a completely different application that is exactly to yours, but they just hijacking the traffic and taking your information. How are you going to be able to, again, to the fake news and face? There's two posts I've seen. One is of the person, like the early deep fakes of Tom Cruise, and this person kind of behaving and talking like Tom Cruise, and you could see the facial. And I saw another one recently in LinkedIn, when this guy said that he's seen very common where he's doing interviews, people having different skins or hiding their persona into an interview. So not only just being able to answer the question, but look completely different. So again, I am me. I'm not fake.
Okay, thanks for confirming that, Alejandro. Otherwise, I would have called you again. What's happening? Yeah. So I know we are very
virtually. Yeah, sorry.
I know we are very tight on time, but can we have two more questions before Alejandro jumps into? And I know we have one at the front, and then we can have you. And then if somebody has a question online, please just hold it for two more questions, and then we'll jump on to you. So yeah, we can start from you. You had your hand.
Hi, Alejandro. In your talk, you talked about non-deterministic outputs from these models and how we can test them. So in my experience working with these, for example, if I'm working like if I want if I want my model to output a specific response for a customer's query, it's never the same. And sometimes it gets it right, but sometimes it gets it wrong. And in the old days, well, not the old days, traditional testing, you have a right answer, right? Like, I want this component to render or whatever. It's like, I thought about it. It's like the difference between grading a multiple choice question and grading an essay. So like, what is the approach there then for a Microsoft, for example, to evaluate the quality of an output like that? I know they have like the up and the down for a customer to react with, but like that's so bad. That's like asking your customer to test your product. Yeah.
Well, I think again, like the way that quality has to be thought will completely change because of that, right? And I think the reason that a lot of the quality controls or how to provide feedback has to also be passed to the customer is because the way that digital products going to be delivered to customers are going to be personalized, and there'll be some kind of this general capability. So you might still consume it through like an app or your watch, but the way that it's going to behave is going to be very personalized to you because you're going to be able to create your own experience. But because you're creating your experience, you're also going to become responsible to feedback if that experience is working as expected. So like the thumb up and down is still, as much as it's basic, is part of giving that feedback back to the organization or back to you as individuals to go. It's not too different to if you think about the rating of apps in the app stores, right? So you probably trust an app if it has more higher reviews than it has lower reviews. So it will become very much based on feedback and reviews and non-deterministic, being very experimental around, okay, we need to run experiments internally and in the wallet, how we control it. So some of the techniques that I use are kind of that canary release or experimentation based and giving a subset of users and experience, get the feedback from there, and then slowly grow it and tweak it, rather than like kind of this big bang of, yep, everything works, and I'm going to make sure that everything works. Does that answer your question?
So like, I guess a follow-up to that would be that's relying on humans, I guess, to evaluate the performance. That, like, I guess the first thing that comes to mind would be scalability problems with something like that. But on the other hand, I also thought about like using other agents, AI agents to evaluate, but then it's like you're depending on other models that also are non-deterministic and infallible to test your it's I don't know. Yeah, I feel like that's a
let me just quickly, because I really wanted to be able to explain a little bit of the challenges of AI, right? So again, this is my DeepSeek chatbot.
And just a second, it's loading on the main screen. It's taking some time. I can see it, but it's taking a bit while to load on the main.
Okay.
Let me check. Yeah, we can see it now. But Alejandro, we had one more question in the room. Do you want to take that first?
Yeah, sure. And then I can show you this, and it will touch some of those topics that were asked on the last question. But yeah, what is the other question?
Yeah, hey. So everyone knows that AI makes us more efficient and our job as well. So it like free lots of time for us, and there is some impression that it's a good opportunity to express yourself with your soft skills, organizational skills, etc. So what do you think regarding transformation of our industry and the job as QA engineers? Is it becomes and transforming to the role like a middleman between business and AI? And maybe soft skills like organizational skills, communication, and all that stuff is more important than technical component. So if so, how would you advise to develop ourselves? Because, from technical perspective, AI can like equalize ourselves from technical knowledge, skills, etc. And our human skills, how we can express ourselves, can like highlight us and even split to these graduates. I mean, from junior to be seniority. interesting your opinion. Thank you.
I know. Look, I think that's a perfect question because you touched on the two components that when I was talking about quality and what hasn't changed. It is still about value to customer, and everybody has a very subjective aspect to what quality is. So it's all about how to be eloquent into your ideas and be able to explain your ideas in the best possible way. And you're correct. We become the middle person or between the technology, either people or AI, and the consumer, either a product person or direct customer. How we're able to, I think one of the key areas that I highlight is how to learn to provide feedback loops quicker and how to design different feedback loops to different personas. And what I mean by that is if you have a product owner or if you have a GM or if you have an AI or a technology person, the type of feedback that you need to provide is completely different. So those soft skills become very important into our job. Again, if you think about what I was mentioning about what is the future of AI, it's all about ensuring that you adapt with innovation. So don't be afraid of it. Understand how to use it securely. But at the same time, it is all around that capability to demonstrate that you can adapt to the trend and experiment. So that we become almost scientists, quality scientists rather than quality engineers or testers. And that's part of what you can see the trend is changing, is because you won't be able to have a binary response for every individual. You need to be able to demonstrate with evidence, with the different approaches that you've done. And you're right, the AI agents and the technical capability will just come and be uplifted. You just need to be able to know what you ask.
Thank you. Any questions online? If you have, I haven't got one, you can directly unmute and ask. You're still watching Real Alejandro? Okay.
Still.
No worries. If
Hours.
somebody has a question, just either ping or directly unmute. Should be fine. But until then, Alejandro, over to you for the live demo.
Thank you. So again, pretty much as that last question, a lot of this is pretty much me using ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot, DeepSeek, and alike. So all of these, I'm not an expert in Python. I'm building APIs. So I do apologize for the design, but it is pretty much a way that demonstrates that the technical capabilities can be put in there. Again, like I mentioned before, what I find that language models will be adapted to be very specific to help with those challenges of creativity and being too wild. So if you can see in here, I ask my chatbot the question, is Milan a good host? Now this chat is using a code-based only model. So it replies back to me as an AI focused on computer science. It cannot evaluate personal or host-based opinions. And then it kind of, because it's a small model, it really kind of talks about Milan being maybe a website or something like that. Not our lovely host there sitting at the back. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other part that I wanted to show from the capabilities of AI is I've been using this sandbox called PattyRock for a while, and what it does is it allows me to create a website based on a prompt, and then the prompt creates this very lightweight application. So in here, I'm able to add. So for example, let's go to the DevOps One website, and I'm gonna add my homepage, which is index. I'm gonna add. Oh, yeah, yes, I'm human. I am human. Okay, I'm gonna add also different components. So I need to make sure I add my footer and my header, and I need to also make sure that I add so it understands how it looks. I need to make sure that it uses my where's my CSS components, engage assets, see, and my styling. Okay, Now in here, as you can see, I got two competing LLMs giving me information and looking at issue analysis. If you see the way that is displaying the issue and the analysis is completely different, even though that I'm using exactly the same prompt. So I haven't changed anything in the prompt. The only thing that I've done is I changed the large language model from Claude, and the other one is Mistral Large. Okay. I've asked for to give me all these different priorities. And then in here, it's pretty much talks about hidden section. The format is different to what I'm asked. So one of the questions early was I could make it more decisive by ensuring that my output format is specified. But even by doing that, different language models will have an interpretation of that completely different. So you can see the quality of the models are different. Now, my expectation is I just want to understand what issues I found on my website and what are the severities that I need to address them. And again, some of them are the same and some of them are different. Then I also added a chat-based model where I'm putting all of that information together and having a language model so it can help me create an HTML report of all my issues. Again, that's a very bad prompt. That's something else that probably I find we need to get better at, and is just because we're always expecting of information quickly because the LLMs are so, the way that they express themselves, it almost feels like you're talking to a human, but you're not. So the more context that you give, the better the response that you're gonna get. So like even this response, probably it doesn't have all of my issues aggregated. I've tried this like 6 times today and I always get a different response. Okay. So again, it's part of, when we were talking about what I need to do as part of as a quality engineer, again, be able to be creative. Again, this doesn't use automation at all. I didn't do any coding. This was just prompt engineering. So it's understanding prompt engineering is something that you need to do, definitely, to help you with information of the prompts. Again, this prompt is not something I generated. Jason Orborn at his Codetest pilot open source a function that you can incorporate with Playwright to send this prompt to OpenAI and then give you feedback and create a report, which is pretty nifty. But again, at the moment you can only using OpenAI. So I prefer this model because I can actually have different language models to understand if I get different responses and again, compete them against each other, but I make the decision what is a better outcome out of that. I think that's everything I have from the demo. Any questions?
Any questions, thought in the room? Do you think something you expected was not covered? Yeah, please go ahead. I'll just put Alejandro in the highlight. Yeah.
Found it fascinating that you found these tools. I was wondering, how do you stay up to date with these stuff? And then, yeah.
Yep.
And then, go ahead.
Okay. The challenge that will come with the industry is because it becomes exponential. Again, like in LinkedIn, I always look and try to investigate new tools. It does take time and effort. So the same way that you're spending time today out of your work to learn new skills, I do it at my lunchtime and my train. It takes extra effort, right? It's part of. I revert back to when I was thinking about what career I wanted to do, and I said I don't want to be a doctor because I always gonna need to do learning. The reality is in the technical industry, it's like a doctor. You never stop learning because you always have to do that extra to be able to stay relevant. So all I recommend is for people to be able to go to these events, even share some of these with your colleagues, because it's all about community. the more stuff that is open source and available for people to experiment, the better that we can adapt to this ever change. So it has to be done as a community.
And the other question that I had was, once agentic AI, so the way I think of agentic AI is it's going to be the equivalent of a human assistant. So instead of a co-pilot, it's actually its own thing, its own intelligent being. And then when I think of when you're, I guess, assessing the quality of another person, let's say an employee, it's very manual, it's very subjective, it's based on interactions and very disparate. So and then you don't get feedback almost immediately. You get it very, through reviews and cycles and stuff like that. So how do you think quality testing would now transform with generative AI? You've kind of hinted on it, but you never, I guess, maybe a concrete example of how you think about it would be nice.
Yeah. So let me just break that question into, so addressing the agentic capabilities. Yes, I see many organizations and large IT organizations are starting to adopt that agentic process of you have a task that you give to the AI and the AI will give it back. But even the beginning of AI was thought as a co-pilot, as an assistive model. So it's a collaboration piece between technology and human. And human it has the responsibility to make the ultimate call around, is that correct or is it incorrect? And it's changing. Okay. So from that principle, I believe that humans will still be in there. But if you think, so again, when you think about how's this going to happen when you have so much change coming through, what you will see is that the workforce will change. And it's the same that has happened through the Industrial Revolution. So if you think about farming, you would have multiple people just going into plantation farms and pretty much putting seeds and then collecting and alike. And now you have these massive trucks that are GPS track and everything is done by one person and technology, right? But still there's a person that goes and said when things need to be planted, when things need to happen, because they still need that human aspect of cognitive and view of the challenges that are in there. So what I can see is more, people say, oh, is the testing role going to disappear? And what I said is not. The first role that probably will disappear is the developer role, which is even if you think in the impact in the industry, usually when you look at ratio of testers to QAs in an organization, usually you have more people delivering value, less people looking at quality. And that's slowly going to shift as the technology in itself is delivering the aspect. And you just need that people power to ensure, okay, is this correct to the satisfaction? And I just want to finish that question also with examples of how to do it. It's not going to be just your common pull request or your common running test and making sure it works. It's going to be additional analysis and experimentation. So it becomes critical to understand that you need to generate feedback loops and be able to tag that information, so you're able to segregate what you want to see into that information that you're given and make a decision based on that information. It is ultimately up to us as humans to making sure that the decision is correct, but it's all part of that collaborative piece of, I'm not just a machine that maybe I added all of these documents and it came with this. Well, doesn't matter, because, well, if I hit six customers that are just not satisfied and are my high-paying customers, but the requirements were met by the AI, where is the quality in that? So you're still going to have that way of, you're going to need that experimentation piece. And that's where I'm looking at capabilities of actually delivering value iteratively and targeted, so you can get feedback loops. So I guess what I keep repeating is feedback loops is for a reason. You need to become a master into understanding how to get feedback, how to digest the feedback.
Yeah, I just have two things to add to what Alejandro said, and then we have next question ready. One is like, I love the way Alejandro took an example from one of the previous job, which was doing farming IoT stuff. And then that is a real thing. Like You cannot just replace with AI, and the quality aspect remains. Second one, I think, Alejandro, you kind of answered. This is very common question in all the testing AI conferences, meetup, like, will AI take my job? But then you kind of answered it so well that it might change the whole perspective that yes, for the developers or maybe automation engineers, it might take that piece of the job market. But then it seemed like, from calculator to computer to internet, like everybody thought it would take their job, but eventually it was addition to what they were doing. It was making them faster, like research and development and all that. But I kind of really, kind of look forward that how we evolve. Like the human touch is still on the quality side, on the QA side, right? That the development was already something like a code, like randomly running piece of, lines, which AI is gonna be writing fast. But the shift towards focus towards more quality, I think it's gonna get probably more jobs in QA space. So we have one more question in the room, and if somebody from online have a question, please raise your hand on Meets and Teams, and then we'll take you next. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So recently I grabbed some initiative in my company, and now I'm cracking my head and trying to investigate which AI tools we can use for our QA job. So, and definitely I do more emphasis on automation tests. I'm trying to implement AI into our automation tests. And of course, we use ChatGPT, Copilot, Codemium. By the way, there is one more tool. Are there any tools which you can definitely recommend? Because after my investigation, I found out that lots of tools which are low quality and unsecured. So are there such tools which you can definitely recommend from security perspective and effectiveness? And the last one, maybe there is such, because of my point of view, the bottleneck, we do UI automation test and backend automation test. And from my point of view, the bottleneck is locators, for example. I tried to find out some tool, AI tool, which can to make this activity more efficient, but I couldn't. So
what about Test Trigger? It was like a sponsor of previous QA conference.
Yeah, I haven't heard. I tried to find out, but yeah.
But still, we don't have single tool which is free or and try to make it static.
And security is the first priority because I work in fintech, and it's very high responsibility to use exactly secure products. So, if any recommendations, please welcome.
So I think to kind of in the room answer, there's more questions that I will ask, which is your organization more driven by open source, or they're looking at license based? That I always find is an indicator of how much risk they want to implement into the organization. And then also, what is the type of coverage that you're trying to address? So like you mentioned, is backend and UI. Okay. So we did an assessment for a large federal government agency here in Australia. And what we found is, again, I think that there's two top competitors at the moment on regards to from a security perspective. And the reason that they came top on security is because they can be self-hosted, they can be localized region. So for example, if I look at my requirement, it was federal. So they had to be hosted into Australia. It couldn't be hosted anywhere else. The LLM capability was more built in-house rather than using like OpenAI and stuff like that. One was Browser Stack created a new AI tool modularized model, and Apply Tools was something else. Mm-hmm. But again, as part of what I've seen in the industry during that assessment, we look at 5 tools and 5 more appear within the same period of time. So it is going to be very challenging around what is it that you're able to do. I'll post again. I'm sure Browser Stack you will be familiar with and have a look because they've been incorporating a lot of capabilities. But like Apply Tools, is one also that we saw, and especially the locators aspect is because they've been doing AI for UI for a long time now. So they've already addressed the challenge of how to look at dynamic locators with different capabilities. I think they also bought a tool called Pre-Flight for more kind of end-to-end flows and dynamic. And that one was also quite interesting because it was using multi-dimension element locators, and based on a percentage of if out of the 5 locators, 3 are identified, it auto heals and it continues. So that you could even implement that open source to run it locally into your own organization if they have limited. From an API perspective, I think the challenge is that with the tools that they're coming in the industry, they're going to become very specialized. So I wouldn't use any of these tools for API testing. It will be more for UI and base. API testing, I know Postman has done a lot of investment into the AI capability, but I haven't seen more coming into that API space or the backend space, because again, it's not just API. You could have SQL based, you could have database validations and alike. So when you're thinking about backend validation, that I still haven't seen something that has come in the industry as quickly. But again, I think like in early conversation, every tool that has been in the market for the past 10 to 5 years has added AI. So there's even tools that are modular that go across all different systems that are adding AI, but they're just adding Copilot or they only adding OpenAI capabilities. They're not really rethinking how AI should be implemented. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I noted few points. Thank you.
Cool. So I think we really had a very good audience and very much interactive. I would have loved more questions from many people, but Alejandro, we do have to do a bit of networking before we go. Talk about jobs in the market, if somebody's hiring, if somebody's open for work. So we just want to make sure people get that time before they go back home late evening. It's a very chilly cold outside, as I said, unlike your 27 degrees Celsius. So I just wanted to and Alejandro, I might take the screen for that. And that would be the last thing today. So under the banner of InnovateQA events, as I was mentioning, InnovateQA events does all these meetups. So minimum 1 monthly meetup here in the reactor. So keep a watch on the meetup page. Secondly, in June, we are doing the biggest in-person, as you can see on the screen, in-person Seattle QA conference and leadership conference, right? So right now, we already have got a lot of interest from speakers who are local and overseas, but we are still open for new first-time speakers as well. If you are interested to speak at the conference, we had a really good time here in Seattle last year. There are not many details about it. The venue, it's on 5th July, and all the things we do and we have done in 2024. So you can have a look. I'll post it on a LinkedIn post tonight or maybe tomorrow early morning. And then if your company or you are willing to sponsor us, that is again an opportunity to get your face out of the market and the leadership space. But irrespective of that, I just stop this and I will really thank you, Alejandro, for joining us. It was like literally 7 or 8 days before I think you're still loading. Yeah, so it'll come up in a second in our big screen. It's very far. Australia is really far. I can already see you in my camera. Yes, so you're there. So yeah, I mean, Alejandro just accepted this very short time ad hoc request to speak online, I think 7 to 8 days back. So I highly appreciate your time, Alejandro, and sharing your knowledge. I think we are still exploring as we understand. We are in the early phase, but then early phase do matter, right? So that's where you build your understanding. That's where, kind of you talk about this is how it started, right? So trying out anything now might be the next thing tomorrow. So, and once again, thank you all of you for showing up. We are